For close to 3 decades, a pair of ancient wolf jawbones remained unexamined within a collection drawer at a natural history museum in Kansas. Each researcher who encountered them observed a creature that appeared to be a perplexing hybrid of the formidable dire wolf and the contemporary gray wolf, a specimen deemed interesting, perhaps, but not warranting extensive investigation. These particular bones had been recovered from a massive sinkhole nestled in the mountains of northern Wyoming, a geological formation that had ensnared various creatures for over 100,000 years. Yet throughout their long tenure in the collection, no one thought to conduct a single genetic analysis on these specific remains. The astonishing truth, then completely unknown, was that these jaws belonged to an animal that should never have roamed that specific terrain. It was neither a dire wolf nor a modern gray wolf. It was an altogether different entity, a spectral presence from a bygone era. When the critical analysis was finally completed, its revelations were so profound that they compelled scientists to fundamentally rewrite a significant chapter in the story of how wolves eventually came to dominate the North American continent. Roughly 20,000 years before those museum drawers were first opened, the creature to whom these formidable jaws once belonged was alive and actively hunting. It moved across an Ice Age rendition of Wyoming, a landscape utterly transformed from what we see today. Colossal mammoths grazed on vast, open grasslands, while ancient horses and camels traversed the expansive plains. Dominant predators like American lions and formidable short-faced bears hunted the same grounds. And among them ran a wolf, notably heavier than any gray wolf inhabiting those mountains presently, distinguished by a broader skull, an exceptionally powerful jaw, and a biting mechanism specifically evolved to crush bone. This was the magnificent Beringian wolf. Academic texts had long situated this particular animal more than 1,000 miles to the north, deep within the frozen expanses of Alaska and the Yukon. By every scientific assumption then held, it had absolutely no reason to be found in Wyoming at all. The location that claimed this animal, and countless others, is known as Natural Trap Cave, a name that is no mere embellishment. It lies hidden within a stretch of pale limestone in the Bighorn Mountains, to the northeast of Lovell, Wyoming. From the surface, its opening, merely 12 feet across, appears almost innocuous. Yet that deceptively narrow aperture plummets 85 feet straight down into a bell-shaped void, widening dramatically as it descends, until its expansive floor spreads out to roughly the dimensions of a football field below. For over 100,000 years, animals traversing that ground never perceived the impending danger. A wolf in hot pursuit of prey through dense brush, a bison navigating the darkness of night, or a wild horse startled into a sudden, desperate sprint. One misstep at the camouflaged edge, and there was no possible ascent back to the surface. They fell into the profound darkness, and there they remained. Imagine, for a fleeting moment, the wolf's final moments, running at full throttle, eyes locked onto a fleeing horse or a young bison, every instinct honed for the decisive strike. Then, without warning, the solid ground simply ceases to exist. There is a single, suspended heartbeat of empty air, followed by 85 feet of nothingness. This same unforgiving trap closed upon animal after animal, century after century, with each fall contributing another layer to the immense accumulation of remains far below. The cave itself did not actively hunt them. It had no need to. It simply lay in wait, and the surrounding landscape inexorably delivered its unsuspecting victims. What that pit achieved next is the very reason this entire remarkable story can be told. Deep within its confines, the temperature remains consistently stable at approximately 42 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year, coupled with a humidity level hovering near 98%. During the peak of summer, the stark contrast between the scorching surface and the frigid chamber below can exceed 45 degrees. Such cold, damp, and stable conditions are nearly perfect for the long-term preservation of bone, and crucially, for safeguarding something far more delicate encased within, genetic material. The only other places on Earth that offer such extraordinary protection to ancient remains are the permafrost regions of Siberia and the Arctic. Thus, an unassuming sinkhole in Wyoming quietly evolved into one of the most vital fossil sites on the continent, harboring layer upon layer of Ice Age history, meticulously stacked by the passage of time. The astounding inventory of creatures unearthed from this chasm reads like a chronicle of a lost North America. Among the species recovered are the massive dire wolves, nimble red foxes, formidable short-faced bears, elusive weasels, agile martens, tenacious wolverines, powerful lions, ancient horses, stately camels, various deer, relatives of the modern pronghorn, robust bison, sure-footed bighorn sheep, and colossal mammoths. Especially prevalent among the finds are the remains of the American cheetah, a swift feline that once pursued its prey across these very plains. Each of these species contributes a distinct thread to the vanished tapestry of the past. However, it was the wolves, initially misidentified and largely overlooked, that ultimately held the most profound revelation. The first dedicated archaeological expeditions to this site commenced in the early 1970s. Even earlier work dates back to 1970, when a researcher named Lawrence Lohendorf conducted the initial investigation of the remains, followed by Carol Jo Rushton's pioneering excavation in 1972. Over the ensuing years, teams from institutions such as the University of Missouri and later, the University of Kansas, meticulously extracted thousands of bones from the deep pit. Among these priceless artifacts were numerous wolf jaws and skulls. These were subsequently transferred to storage at the Kansas Museum, properly cataloged, shelved, and for many years, largely forgotten. Here lies the crucial detail that eluded everyone at the time. No one could definitively classify the specific type of wolf they were examining. The skeletal structures did not precisely match those of a dire wolf, nor did they fully align with a modern gray wolf. Consequently, researchers opted for a compromise, hypothesizing some form of amalgamation between known species, and then proceeded with other investigations. There was, in fact, a very compelling reason why they could not accurately categorize those particular jaws, though its significance remained undiscovered. The very animal that would ultimately provide the explanation had not yet even been formally identified by science. That vital answer emerged in 2007, originating from the distant Alaskan wilderness. In that pivotal year, scientists officially recognized a distinct Ice Age predator from the frozen northern reaches, christening it the Beringian wolf. This species was somewhat smaller than a dire wolf, yet possessed a head that was heavier and stronger than that of a gray wolf, equipped with a bite force capable of tearing into the largest prey inhabiting its landscape. It had coexisted with mammoths and steppe bison before eventually fading from existence. For the first time, paleontologists possessed a clear morphological profile of what a Beringian wolf truly represented, which meant that, at long last, those peculiar jaws languishing in a Kansas museum drawer could be accurately compared against a tangible, known species. Kansas had unknowingly housed a Beringian wolf for years. They had simply never realized its true identity. By this point, the cave itself had been deliberately sealed. The Bureau of Land Management secured its entrance with a gate in 1989, keeping it closed for 34 years to safeguard whatever treasures still lay within. It required the dedication of a paleontologist named Julie Meechan to orchestrate its reopening. In 2014, Professor Meechan, an esteemed anatomy specialist at a university in Des Moines, assembled a research team and successfully secured permission to re-enter the chasm. Accessing the cave floor demanded rappelling 85 feet straight down through that narrow opening, into the cold, profound darkness, then working by the illumination of headlamps within a chamber that remains near freezing, even during the peak heat of a Wyoming summer. A specialized caving and rope safety expert, Juan Leiden, meticulously rigged the necessary lines and expertly guided the team during their arduous descents and ascents, acknowledging that a fall in this environment would be just as catastrophic now as it was 20,000 years ago. The work proved slow and physically demanding. Every single bucket of excavated sediment had to be painstakingly hoisted to the surface via rope, then carefully sorted and screened by hand. Furthermore, the team had to operate within the constraints of Wyoming's notoriously brief field season. Across 3 such intense field seasons, Professor Meechan meticulously unearthed new specimens, bones, teeth, and, most crucially, biological material still containing ancient genetic code. She could easily have treated those wolf jaws in the same manner as her predecessors, as a known quantity, undeserving of a second thought. But she chose not to. Had Professor Meechan merely accepted the outdated classification, this would be an entirely different narrative, and the spectral presence within those bones would still reside forgotten in a drawer. Instead, she dispatched the wolf material for comprehensive testing, examining both its morphology and its genetic composition. The profound answer awaiting discovery was far more significant than the secrets of a single cave. When the research team rigorously compared those particular jaws and teeth against specimens of Alaskan Beringian wolves, against dire wolves, and against modern gray wolves, the resulting pattern was irrefutable. The Wyoming jaws did not group with the dire wolves. They did not group with the gray wolves. Instead, they clustered unequivocally with the Beringian wolves of the far north. For the first time, robust physical evidence confirmed that this ancient northern predator had indeed lived deep within the continental United States, more than 1,000 miles south of any location where its survival was previously thought possible. This revelation unearthed a question far grander than a mere collection of bones. If Beringian wolves had existed here in Wyoming, how had they navigated a continent entombed in ice to reach such a distant point? The specimens themselves provided definitive clues regarding their age through meticulous radiocarbon dating. The Wyoming wolves had roamed the land sometime between approximately 25,800 and 14,300 years ago. This particular time frame is crucial, as it falls squarely within the last glacial maximum, an era when two immense ice sheets enveloped the northern expanse of North America. To the east lay the vast Laurentide ice sheet, while the Cordilleran dominated the west. Between these gargantuan frozen barriers, for specific spans of geological time, a narrow, ice-free corridor of land would alternately open and close, much like a grand, natural gateway. Aligning these dates with geographical maps reveals a timing almost too perfect to be coincidental. That corridor would have naturally funneled animals migrating southward, and its trajectory points almost directly toward the mouth of Natural Trap Cave. These wolves did not materialize in Wyoming from nowhere. They migrated there, meticulously following the great herds along a passage that existed for only a fleeting moment in geological history. The cave's contents corroborated this theory. Alongside the wolf remains, the same sedimentary layers yielded evidence of steppe bison and other animal species that had also journeyed southward from the Beringian land bridge. The wolves were not aimlessly wandering. They were actively hunting, pursuing the colossal migrating herds through the natural gap in the ice. Natural Trap Cave, by sheer chance, happened to lie directly within their established migratory path. One by one, over the course of thousands of years, some of these unsuspecting predators misjudged that concealed precipice in the darkness and plummeted into the void. It is important to truly comprehend the nature of this extraordinary animal. A Beringian wolf possessed a snout that was shorter and deeper than that of a gray wolf, coupled with a jaw that was demonstrably more powerful. Consider this for a moment. Every aspect of its skull was biomechanically engineered for immense force, designed for clamping down on something colossal and steadfastly refusing to release, and for efficiently cracking bone to access the nutrient-rich marrow within. This was a highly specialized predator, perfectly adapted for a world teeming with giants. Its diet primarily consisted of horses and steppe bison, with mammoths, caribou, and muskox also on the menu whenever the opportunity arose. Imagine a pack of these wolves systematically bringing down a wounded bison on open terrain, their jaws locked with unyielding grip, completing through sheer brute strength what distance and exposure had initiated. As long as the megafauna thrived, the Beringian wolf flourished. Its very existence, its entire evolutionary design, was intrinsically tied to that world remaining precisely as it was, a dependence that would, paradoxically, one day become its ultimate undoing. There is one more crucial aspect to grasp about that ancient Wyoming landscape. Today, North America is home to a singular wild wolf species, the gray wolf. Yet during the Ice Age, this continent simultaneously hosted at least three distinct types of wolves. There was the formidable dire wolf, a creature of immense weight and crushing power. There was the resilient gray wolf, the adaptable survivor we recognize today. And then there was the Beringian wolf, the specialized northern hunter, now remarkably turning up in a Wyoming sinkhole. Three apex predators, their ranges overlapping, constantly competing, and expertly partitioning a landscape abundant with prey, almost beyond our modern imagination. How could three such distinct wolf species successfully share a single continent? The answer lies in the fact that they were never truly vying for the same sustenance. The dire wolf was a heavy-bodied grappler, built to tackle immense, slower-moving prey. The gray wolf, conversely, was the quintessential adaptable generalist, capable of thriving on virtually any food source. And the Beringian wolf had uniquely specialized in pursuing the swift, powerful giants of the open northern plains. Each species had expertly carved out its own ecological niche within a world overflowing with resources. When that critical food base inevitably collapsed, two of those three distinct ecological niches vanished forever. What this extraordinary cave preserved was not merely a single, anomalous animal. It was a vivid snapshot of a far richer, wilder predatory ecosystem that has, over millennia, gradually diminished to a solitary surviving species. Moreover, the Wyoming site offered something almost no other location could provide. Most ancient fossils of this age are nothing more than petrified stone, their original biological essence long since obliterated. However, the consistent cold, damp stability of Natural Trap Cave had remarkably safeguarded actual genetic material across countless millennia. Researchers were able to extract mitochondrial DNA from bones that were approximately 20,000 years old. That figure is not a misprint, 20,000 years. And astonishingly, the genetic signal remained clearly decipherable. Outside the permanently frozen permafrost of the Arctic, such an occurrence is almost unprecedented. This meant that the wolves from this particular cave could be interrogated not solely through the morphology of their bones, but directly through their intrinsic genetic code. Enter Dr. Alan Cooper and his team of specialists at the renowned Australian Centre for Ancient DNA. While bone morphology can sometimes be misinterpreted, two unrelated animals might, by sheer chance, develop similar jaw structures. Genetic code is far more resistant to misinterpretation. Mitochondrial DNA, passed down exclusively through the maternal lineage, persists in minute fragments long after the degradation of the rest of a cell, making it an indispensable tool in ancient genetic research. By meticulously reassembling these tiny fragments and conducting comparative analyses across various wolf populations, Dr. Cooper's laboratory could effectively query the bones themselves about their deep ancestral relationships. They cross-referenced the ancient genetic sequences recovered from the Wyoming wolves against those from wolves found throughout the Ice Age world. The Wyoming sequences did not align with the dire wolves. Instead, they conclusively matched the Beringian wolves of Alaska, the very animals from the frozen northern territories. Now, two independent lines of scientific evidence pointed unequivocally toward the same improbable conclusion. The skeletal structure indicated a Beringian wolf. The DNA confirmed a Beringian wolf. The ancient ghost had finally been given its name. And it is precisely here that those long-forgotten museum bones completely transformed our understanding. For many decades, the very jaws that scientists had previously dismissed as unremarkable had quietly become the single most compelling evidence for a predator that no one had believed could ever have ventured this far south. They compelled a redrawing of the Beringian wolf's known geographical range, extending its confirmed presence far beyond the Arctic and deep into the very heart of the North American continent. These findings supplied a crucial missing piece to the long-standing puzzle of how and when wolves dispersed across North America, and in doing so, they unveiled an entirely new and intriguing question. If this northern hunter had successfully pushed its way all the way to Wyoming, how much further might it have traveled? And how many other museum drawers around the world might unknowingly house the same spectral presence, simply waiting for someone to finally recognize it? That pivotal corridor between the gargantuan ice sheets represents one of the most significant geological features of the entire Ice Age, and its importance extends far beyond just wolves. For years, scientific discourse has hotly debated how various animals, and even the very first human inhabitants, navigated through the core of a continent locked in ice. The Wyoming wolves provide a definitive data point in that ongoing discussion. They serve as physical proof that this ancient passage was indeed open, that it was traversable, and that formidable predators successfully traveled its entire length, reaching as far south as the latitude of central Wyoming. It was a natural gateway in the ice, held open just long enough for a specialized northern hunter to slip through and establish a thriving existence on the other side. The presence of steppe bison, found within the same cave layers, further corroborates this logic. These were not wolves that drifted southward purely by chance. They deliberately migrated, in relentless pursuit of herds that were undertaking the very same epic journey through the glacial gap. There is also a broader, even more profound scientific benefit buried within all these discoveries. Most of what we currently understand about the deep past is derived from the morphological study of bones, and skeletal structures, as we've seen, can occasionally mislead. Ancient DNA, however, fundamentally transforms the entire field, because it enables researchers to rigorously test those hypotheses against the actual biological blueprint that constructed the animal itself. Sites that preserve decipherable genetic material of such immense age can be counted on just one hand, scattered predominantly across the permanently frozen peripheries of our planet. Natural Trap Cave stands as a rare and remarkable exception, situated far from the poles, deep within the interior of a continent, quietly safeguarding genetic time capsules that almost no other place on Earth could possibly maintain. That is precisely why a single pit in Wyoming now carries such immense international scientific weight. Far more than just a mere hole filled with old bones, it serves as one of the few places on Earth where the Ice Age can still be directly interrogated. For thousands of years, the Beringian wolf reigned supreme in that frozen world. Then, the very environment for which it had been perfectly adapted began to unravel. As the last ice age drew to a close, the climate grew warmer, the vast grasslands upon which megafauna depended began to shrink, and the entire ecosystem supporting these colossal creatures collapsed. The mammoths vanished, the populations of steppe bison drastically thinned, and a predator, expertly engineered to bring down giants, found itself stranded in a landscape devoid of its accustomed prey. What followed was a brutally logical sequence of events. The very traits that had ensured the Beringian wolf's immense success, its heavy skull, its bone-crushing bite, its hyper-specialization in giant prey, were precisely the characteristics that sealed its fate once those giants were gone. A generalist species possesses the flexibility to alter its diet, but a specialist, finely tuned to hunt mammoths and bison, had no alternative food source to turn to. By approximately 12,500 years ago, the Beringian wolf had vanished, disappearing alongside the dire wolf and the other lost titans of the Ice Age. Evolution had constructed a flawless hunting machine for a world that was on the brink of ending. What transpired next is a subtle yet profound evolutionary twist that continues to shape the wolf populations we encounter today. While the specialized northern wolves faced extinction, a distinct population had been enduring the Ice Age far to the south, safely below the immense glacial sheets. As the ice gradually receded, these southern survivors commenced a northward migration, reclaiming the emptied territories. Every single wild wolf in North America today traces its lineage back to that resilient southern population. It is a peculiar realization. The wolves we have historically persecuted, driven out, and then painstakingly reintroduced to iconic landscapes like Yellowstone National Park are the direct descendants of those fortuitous survivors. They represent the lineage that, by sheer happenstance, was in precisely the right place when the ice began its retreat. The wolves whose haunting calls might echo through that park at night are not the heirs of the ghost wolves that tragically fell into that Wyoming pit. The Beringian wolf left absolutely no living descendants. It bequeathed only its bones, and the compelling story meticulously inscribed within them. This, then, is what elevates this narrative far beyond a mere ancient fossil story. We are currently experiencing what scientists now refer to as a sixth mass extinction event, with countless species disappearing under the combined pressures of a rapidly changing climate and extensive human activity. The Beringian wolf serves as a poignant historical record of precisely such an event. A formidable predator utterly erased the moment its world shifted too quickly for it to adapt and survive. The dedicated researchers meticulously excavating Natural Trap Cave interpret the site as a profound warning etched in stone. Outside their specialized field, however, few people seem to be heeding this critical message, even as scientific discoveries continue to accelerate at an astonishing pace. You may have recently encountered reports about a particular enterprise claiming to have successfully resurrected the dire wolf. What they actually produced were contemporary gray wolves carrying a limited number of genetic modifications, physically engineered to superficially resemble the original species rather than recreating the lost animal itself. The true frontier of honest scientific endeavor, however, operates with far greater caution, and in many ways presents findings that are far more astonishing. Professor Meechan has been unequivocal about how significantly these discoveries complicate the previously simplistic understanding of wolf migration. For a long time, the prevailing assumption was straightforward. Gray wolves migrated from Eurasia, and that, essentially, constituted the entire narrative. The Beringian wolves unearthed at Natural Trap Cave utterly shattered that simplistic view, revealing a far greater extent of movement, more substantial genetic variation, and a more intricate interplay of species across the continent than anyone had ever before depicted on a map. She has even openly pondered whether some living gray wolves might still harbor hidden fragments of Beringian ancestry deeply embedded within their DNA, quiet echoes of that ancient spectral presence, once again hidden in plain sight. The vital work is far from concluded. In recent field seasons, Professor Meechan and her dedicated colleagues continue their descents into the challenging pit, steadily recovering more teeth and bone, continuously adding to a historical record that now encompasses more than 100,000 years of life and death within this singular patch of Wyoming. A special scientific volume has consolidated decades of findings from the cave, and even that publication reads less like a definitive conclusion and more like an ongoing status report. The pit continues to yield its secrets, and humanity is still learning how to truly listen. Therefore, the profound question these ghost wolves ultimately leave behind is not merely what fell into that cave. It is what might still be out there, awaiting discovery. Somewhere within the vast genome of a living wolf, or perhaps concealed in a museum drawer that no one has yet considered reopening, or within a subterranean layer of a cave still awaiting excavation, the complete narrative of this remarkable animal may yet reside. Wyoming has already brought one ancient specter out of the darkness and given it a name. How many more remain hidden in plain sight, patiently waiting for someone to finally look closely enough to perceive them? We invite you to explore more such profound historical journeys by subscribing to our channel for continued insights into the forgotten past.